History is forged by individuals who can bend the world to their will. Few have bent it further or faster than this ambitious young artillery officer from Corsica. This is the story of how Napoleon Bonaparte turned the chaos of a revolution into his personal ladder to absolute power. Born in 1769 on the island of Corsica, a rugged land only recently acquired by France, Napoleon Bonaparte was an outsider from birth. He was a member of a minor Italian noble family in a place that chafed under French rule. Sent to military academy in mainland France, he was a solitary, studious boy, frequently mocked by his aristocratic French classmates for his thick Corsican accent. This forged in him a fierce ambition and a deep-seated desire to prove himself superior. He devoured books on military history, analyzing the campaigns of Alexander and Caesar, internalizing the principles of speed, surprise, and decisive action that would later define his genius. While Napoleon sharpened his mind, France collapsed into the bloody chaos of revolution. The monarchy was overthrown, the king executed, and the nation plunged into the reign of terror. France was a nation at war with itself and with all of Europe, a cauldron of radical ideals and terrifying violence. For the established powers of France, this was a disaster, but for a young, talented officer like Napoleon, this power vacuum was the opportunity of a lifetime. His first chance to seize it came at the Siege of Toulon in 1793. The city had rebelled against the Republic and was occupied by British and Spanish forces. The French Revolutionary Army, led by incompetent generals, was stuck in a fruitless siege. A young 24-year-old Captain Bonaparte, given command of the artillery, surveyed the scene with a fresh, strategic eye. He recognized the strategic key, a hill overlooking the harbor. Seize that hill, he argued, and his cannons could rain fire upon the enemy fleet, forcing them to abandon the city. His plan was audacious, and after weeks of meticulous preparation and a display of incredible personal bravery in the final assault, it worked perfectly. The Allied fleet was driven out, Toulon fell, and Napoleon Bonaparte was promoted to brigadier general. He was no longer an outsider, he was a hero of the Republic. 2 years later, in October of 1795, his star would rise even higher. A royalist mob, 1,000 strong, marched on the National Convention in Paris, threatening to overthrow the revolutionary government. In a moment of panic, the government turned to the young general who had saved Toulon. With little time and few troops, Napoleon did the unthinkable. He ordered cannons to be brought into the heart of Paris, and, as the mob advanced, gave the order to fire. The cannons roared, unleashing what he would later call a whiff of grapeshot, striking the royalist ranks and scattering them in minutes. He had saved the government, but in doing so, he had also demonstrated a terrifying ruthlessness and a clear understanding that political power often comes from the barrel of a gun. Paris was now his city. It was during this time that he met the woman who would define his personal life, Josephine de Beauharnais, a charismatic and politically connected widow 6 years his senior. Josephine was a leading figure in Parisian society. Napoleon, still a socially awkward soldier, was instantly captivated by her charm and grace. Theirs was a passionate, turbulent affair. For Napoleon, she represented the sophistication and acceptance he craved. For Josephine, he was a man of immense, rising power. They married in 1796, just 2 days before he left to command the army of Italy. The letters he wrote her from the front lines are legendary. filled with declarations of intense love and desperate longing. His new command in Italy was meant to be a minor front. He was given a poorly fed, poorly equipped, and demoralized army of 37,000 men, but Napoleon transformed it into a lightning bolt. In a whirlwind campaign from 1796 to 1797, he electrified his troops with promises of glory and riches. What made him a genius was his break from the rigid, slow-moving warfare of the 18th century. While his Austrian opponents marched in long, predictable lines, Napoleon's army moved with unprecedented speed, living off the land and concentrating his forces to strike decisively at the enemy's weakest point. He defeated armies twice the size of his own through brilliant maneuvering at battles like Lodi and Rivoli. He was a master of propaganda, founding his own newspapers to report his glorious victories back to Paris, and plundering Italy's finest art to fill the Louvre. He returned to France not just as a general, but as a living legend. Seeking even greater glory, he launched a campaign in Egypt in 1798, hoping to disrupt British trade routes. While a military failure, his fleet was famously destroyed by Admiral Nelson at the Battle of the Nile. Napoleon masterfully spun it into a spectacular PR success. He brought with him a legion of scientists and scholars whose discoveries, including the legendary Rosetta Stone, captivated Europe and heralded a new age of Egyptology. He returned to France in 1799, abandoning his army, but arriving just as the Directory government was collapsing under its own corruption. France was ripe for another change. Sensing his moment, he allied with political conspirators, including his own brother Lucien. In the coup of 18 Brumaire, he used a combination of political intrigue and the threat of military force to dissolve the government and establish a new one, the consulate. At its head, with near absolute authority, was First Consul Napoleon Bonaparte. In the space of a mere 6 years, Napoleon had climbed from an unknown captain to the absolute ruler of France. He had used his military genius, his boundless ambition, and his uncanny ability to seize opportunities from the jaws of chaos. The soldier had become a statesman, and the stage was now set for him to become an emperor. And that is the architecture of Napoleon's rise to power. Remember, history is more than a story, it's a code, and there is always another layer to decrypt. Subscribe and continue the investigation with us.